Hello everyone. I wanted to make a brief video of something that I've been teaching, talking and writing quite a bit, which is the difference of mindfulness and awareness type yogic training. So I have written about this and talked about this quite a lot, and usually have used three different terms when discussing this. So what I mean by mindfulness type of training, which is really extensively done in most schools of Buddhism, what I mean by that is training in one-pointed concentration, which means to hold one's attention in on one single object. Or I have used the term attention, which means being attentive, sort of like a wild animal that is in nature, when even actually domestic animals, when they hear something that they don't immediately recognize, some sound, for example, they go all eyes and ears. So what happens here is that our eyes and ears, our perception goes out to attend this peripheral space, three-dimensional space around us. So those two things, intention, where one is focused on an object, or attention, where you're focused on the three-dimensional space, and peripheral, using peripheral attention. So these two types of meditation or concentration are really widely practiced in Buddhism. And myself, I used to train I started my practice with Zen Buddhism, where I spent a few years, every day, all day, focusing on my breath, and especially like a very deep abdominal breathing. The reason why I started to film this short video in the first place was that I was watching some YouTube videos and I saw a clip of, I think, some Eastern Asian nuns, monastics, who were chanting Buddhist prayers and walking in a line. So they were practicing walking meditation while chanting this prayer. And the way they did this was that they were really focused on that chanting, on those steps they were taking, and focused in a way that looks and feels, I've done the same thing training myself, that feels really constricted and not relaxed, not open. And I've seen this a lot, of course, somebody focuses so much, like the eyebrows go furrowed and one becomes tense, and the energy doesn't flow. So this is actually very common in various degrees. I remember when about a year and a half ago I started working with the old Dharma Mind Sangha in UK and Ireland, and this group of people, practitioners, they had used this paradigm, this being focused, being attentive, being focused, being attentive, being focused, being attentive, this paradigm for many years in their practice. And as a consequence, because this paradigm, it is, if you do this kind of practice, it is support for that concentration practice if the surroundings are quiet. So it is usual that with groups that practice this style of training, they don't talk much, the retreats are quiet, and it's kind of formal and strict in a way. So I certainly saw that a lot in old Dharma Mind Sangha members, and I've seen it in everywhere, because it is everywhere in Buddhism. Most schools, lineages practice from this mindfulness, intention, attention, concentration perspective. But there is an alternative, an option for this, and this is awareness paradigm of prioritizing natural state, natural awareness, knowing awareness. These are all synonyms of the same thing that I'm talking about. And this type of training is not based on concentration. So one thing about concentration on a single object or a three-dimensional space is that it is very difficult. Everybody who has spent, let's say, 100 to 300 hours sitting knows that the mind gets distracted really easily. So we have this, inbuilt restlessness in us because of the many habits, mental, emotional habits in our mind, and because of this we cannot concentrate well. I practiced Zen Buddhism for 4 years, and for most of that time I was practicing this focusing on breath, really a strong focus, and was guided personally by some of the greatest Zen Buddhist masters from Japan, and acknowledged teachers. So I used to do that training a lot. I practiced Zen for 4 years, and without exception was sitting 8 hours or more every day. So I've done it quite a bit, thousands and thousands of hours. But I remember that, and this is also the experience of others who have done that kind of training, that this muscle of concentration, being able to concentrate, it builds really, really slowly because of this restlessness we, as samsaric beings have. So because of this very point, restlessness, concentration is really difficult for us. And because it's difficult, it requires a lot of effort, time, energy, and dedication if we are to actually learn it and master it. But there is another way. Oh yes, so another thing about this mindfulness type training is that so we are practicing within our mind. So the meaning of concentration and attention practice is that it calms our mind, and we gain one-pointed focus that we then can use in vipassana practice, which is the analytical meditation or study of mental and emotional elements, all this stuff that happens in the mind. So traditionally and usually this one has to have calmness, one-pointedness, concentration, so that vipassana can be effectively practiced. So when concentration is practiced, it's sort of like our mind, which is our aura, energetic events, mental, emotional events in our aura. It's sort of like when it's messy like this, when thoughts and emotions are flying around in the mind, we start to, instead of being lost, getting lost in this mess, we start to exercise this concentration. And this concentration stays for a moment until, we get caught up again in these thoughts, and then we remind us again, get back to the single object until we get lost in it again. And this is the muscle training of concentration that everybody has to do if you follow this path. So in a way, mind, mental, emotional stuff, it keeps going on in the mind, in the aura, as energetic events. But with this concentration, we start to sort of like clearing out some space in that aura where we can sense this calmness. And the more concentration and the longer it can be sustained, the bigger this cleared out space is, the bigger it becomes, and we can sense this calmness there. So it's sort of like if you have a messy storage room full of stuff, you clear out a space in there so that you can be in that space. But so there is an option for this that is used in Dzogchen. I guess you could say that it's used in Zen in some degree, possibly in Tibetan Mahamudra as well, and that is the awareness type of path. So with awareness type, the students, practitioners from the start are, as they traditionally say, the starting point, we take the goal, which is the Buddha nature, this awakened nature we have, we take that as a starting point and as a path. So we don't really prioritize, don't use this concentration, being attentive, needing this silence, needing these special circumstances, but rather we clear out the space of the mind in an instant, as quickly as possible, so that we can access and find, so that this awakened nature, Buddha nature can reveal itself. And this can be done in Dzogchen teachings, including open heart. We do different techniques for this. They can be tantric techniques, but the very concise, short practices for this are the so-called semjins, which is a Tibetan word, and it means something like revealer of the natural state, revealer of Buddha nature. And I will now show you one kind of semjin. Pet! 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 Like that. So I'm Open Heart teacher. I'm the head teacher, present head teacher of Open Heart Sangha. And in my work, I call these sudden shouts with the name dynamic concentration. So this is actually also concentration practice, but concentration, the way how it's used in some semjins, like the pet syllable, pet mantra that I just used, it's used in a sharp way, like a punch or a hit, like a thunderstrike. So when I said that concentration and attention practice is sort of like clearing out a small space, then a bigger space, and a little bit bigger space, with semjins in the awareness type of path, you just explode the whole mind, all those energetic events in the aura, you just, sort of like light up a dynamite stick, TNT, and you just explode it open. And what happens is that all these energetic events and mental restlessness, for a moment, they subside. They completely disappear. And when that happens, there is no other option than the natural state to appear. And it's impossible to miss that. It's simply impossible to miss that, because all that mental chatter, whatever emotional reactions you might be having, restlessness, anxiousness, fears, greed, whatever, all that is blown off, blown out. So there's no other possibility than to this recognition of the natural state to take place. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is much, much, much easier as yogic, dharmic, spiritual path than the concentration path. Way easier and way more beneficial. So when you learn, and everybody can learn it, I've been talking about this publicly for years now, it's much easier and it's way better suited for modern lay people than the concentrative path. You don't need any special circumstances. You don't need to keep silent on retreats. It's way better integrated already with our daily life. So we don't need to confine ourselves into this training mode and train hard and with furrowed brows in this concentration. We can just get rid of the whole problem in one instant, and that will solve, really, it will solve our problems right there. And this, of course, has been taught by Tibetan Dzogchen masters, some Zen masters of the past, for centuries and centuries. So this is nothing new. And the reason why I wanted to do this video is to inform people that there is an option to arduous, hard concentration mindfulness training, and that is awareness prioritized training. Thank you very much, and sorry that I took almost 18 minutes of your time. I wish you have a nice day.